It is the best machine to have on a boat. That is what makes a massive difference.
How many layers?
12.
12?
So that versatility is the strong point with the Sailrite.
So when did you first start sewing? When did you first learn how to sew?
Back in the 70s, when I was a teenager, punk rock happened to the UK. With punk rock came a punk fashion. Tight, narrow trousers and zips sewn into their clothing. It was kind of a bit of a thing at the time. But previously to that, in the 70s, we were all wearing baggy trousers. So I wanted my mum to take in my trousers and sew zips onto them. And my mum said, I'm not doing that to your clothes. But if you must have it, I'll show you how the sewing machine works and you can do it yourself.
Wow.
So that's what she did. She showed me how the sewing machine worked.
How old were you?
12 or 13.
Wow.
So she showed me how the sewing machine worked. And I started altering my clothing. And I found that as soon as you start using sewing machines, they go wrong. And then you have to deal with that. And I found I enjoyed more dealing with the problems in the machines than I did actually using the machines. And then like my friends' mums found out that I could fix sewing machines, so occasionally I'd be around a friend's house and they'd end up getting their mum's sewing machines out for me to fix. It wasn't something that I tried to do, it found me in a bizarre way.
How did your clothes turn out?
Terrible.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you wear them to school?
Oh god, yeah. Oh, I wore them. I'm sure my mother cringed when she saw me leaving the house with these creations that I'd put on.
But at the time, you thought they were.
At the time, I was the coolest guy around, as far as I was concerned.
Wow, so that's how it all started.
So that's how sewing started. One of my earliest memories as a child, I was crawling at the time, so I must have been like 3. And I crawled underneath the treadle sewing machine that we had in our house. I remember jamming my hand in the belt. No, not in a painful way, just my hand got stuck. And I have this memory of looking down at the pedal and looking at my hand in the belt and working out why my hand had got trapped when I'd pushed the pedal down. I realised that that was what had happened. I'd pushed it down and it had jammed my hand. One of my first memories as a child was an experience with a vintage sewing machine. So yeah, sewing machines have kind of followed me through my life.
Do you have any idea how many sewing machines you've repaired in your life?
No, easily in the 3 figures. But
wow. So at some point you decided that you would generate income from repairing sewing machines, sort of like commercially, or?
No, I didn't decide that.
No.
The sewing machines decided that. I never had any intention of becoming a sewing machine repairman. I was a firefighter for 21 years. During that period, I hardly touched a sewing machine. When we moved to Shetland, we couldn't afford a house. The houses up here are very expensive, and there were none available because of the oil industry. All the houses we used, but we could afford a boat. So we thought, well, you know, I knew I was never going to be able to afford to have a boat to play with, but having a boat to live on, that was a different opportunity. Huh. So then as soon as you have a boat, you then have the issues with boats, as you know yourself. You need to be able to repair your sails, you need to be able to sew heavier fabrics. So I ended up looking for sewing machines. I tried to find older sewing machines and cheaper ones that would do the job. So I went through quite a few until I eventually ended up with a Sailrite style of machine that was the one that kind of did it. It kind of followed on from there. So yeah, I didn't deliberately go back into sewing machines. I just fell into it. What I try to do is I try to help people repair their own machines, because that's far more useful for them. So if I can help someone repair theirs, I'll do that. And sometimes I can do it over the internet, or I can talk people through a repair, or we can do like a video link and I can talk them through it. And I've done that all over the world. I've kind of repaired, you know, I helped a teenage girl in the Philippines repair and restore her grandmother's treadle machine to the point where she was able to make clothes on it.
You also have a sewing Facebook page. Can you tell
Yeah, So Far North.
So Far, that's a great name.
So Far North is a group that I put together to kind of support people who had issues, and it's a way of showing people some different machines. A lot of people, they haven't seen a lot of the vintage machines. You know, they might have seen the occasional black and gold thing in a thrift shop window, but never got a chance to kind of look up close, and never got to see them in something like the original kind of design that when they came out.
Can we take a look at some of your sewing machines? So you bought all of these so that you could renovate them or rebuild them?
I came across them in various different ways. So some of them I've bought because they were in thrift shops. Some of them I've been given by people who didn't want them anymore. I don't go out and buy a full price machine. I'll buy them when they're finished with, and they're either sitting looking dilapidated or they're on the way to the dump.
And then you fix them up.
And if I can, I fix them up.
And then sell them.
Sell them or trade them for something, or kind of find a new home for them, really. Yeah. I mean, I can't use all these machines, so what I'd much rather is get them into use.
You're the guy that saves sewing machines.
I save them.
Save them. You're the hero of the sewing machines. This one is from 1884 or 1885, and you can see the design and the beautiful box it's beautiful made. Wooden box.
And this is an English-made one.
The Jones. That's just beautiful. The artwork on there is incredible.
And listen to this. It's just a lovely thing to use.
That's a beautiful meditative sound.
Yeah. So there's quite a lot of people that I've met. They remember sitting on their grandma's lap, helping them sew, either turning the wheel, or they would hold the fabric and the granny would turn the wheel. And they have a smell from the old oil that they used to be used, and the varnish on the wood. And a lot of people want to recreate that for their own grandchildren. So I've done a lot of renovations for people that have grandkids and they want to give them that memory. The memories and the impact it has when that is something that you see as a small child, and the mechanism and the movement of it and the sound of it, it just creates such a wonderful memory, and people want to give that memory back.
1884.
Yeah, so this is almost 150 years old. And this still sews as well now as the day it was made. So it shows the level and the quality of build at that time is just phenomenal.
That's amazing.
And you'll never get a sewing machine now. You'll never get a sewing machine that's made these days to last anything like that time. And what I do is I strip them right down to the bare wood. I re-varnish them with a more modern varnish. I'll cover them with an acrylic lacquer, and that just gives it a nice shine again, and also protects the decorations from getting any worse. A lot of them, they're much worse than this. All of the decoration is gone, they're damaged, they're scratched. There's a thing called pin rash, which is the bane of all sewing machines. A lot of people, they'll have a bit of fabric wrapped around there and sewn on.
Oh.
And then when they're sewing, they'll take the pins out and they'll stick the pins in that fabric.
Oh, okay.
Which feels really convenient.
Yeah.
But what happens is the pins go through the fabric, and then they take off the coatings on the underneath.
Right.
So you get a lot of machines with this what's called pin rash, where the pins have basically just taken off all of the paint and all of the decoration. So that's a thing to kind of deal with. So yeah, some of them are in a terrible state when I get them. In that case, they have to be completely stripped and repainted.
Where did you find this machine?
So this machine was being thrown out. It was a rental house, and the tenants had moved out, and they left two machines behind. One was a treadle, and this was the other one. The landlord was clearing the house to be let again, and he just wanted rid of them. So he saw my Facebook page and said, "There's two machines in this house. If you want them, come and get them." That one I got for free. So this one is a little bit more classic.
Wow.
This one is a 15
is actually the longest production sewing machine ever. Started around about the 1890s, I think, the 15. There are factories in India that still make them because they are really, really useful machines if you live off grid. Remote villages, mountain villages that don't have either reliable or any electricity, they are still widely used in areas like that. Oh, there you go, 1851 to 1951. Wow. So this badge is a centenary edition. And the nice thing about Singers is they have this serial number on the front. And you can get onto a website, you can look up that serial number and it'll tell you where and when it was made. Wow.
Was Singer started by a person named Singer? Is that a person's name?
Isaac Singer.
Isaac Singer.
Isaac Singer. I think he kind of worked on engines originally, and then somebody made a sewing machine and he saw it and thought, I could do it better than that. So he created a one. And at the time there were a lot of manufacturers and there was a lot of copying, and this machine you will see all over the world with lots of different badges on, but it looks the same. And the thing that makes it stand out from other machines is the tensioner is on the end plate rather than on the front, and it has this kind of shape of head. And it's very recognizable as a 15 class machine. After the Second World War, the American government, in kind of a way to help the Japanese rebuild after the war, they instructed Singer to give the designs for the 15 to Japan. And then the Japanese built machines based on the 15. Some of them have slightly different designs, but they are completely recognizable as 15 class machines. I have actually got one in my other shed.
A Japanese made?
Yeah, a Japanese made.
Wow.
Singer style. And they're recognizable because of that system, the tensioner being on the end. And some of them have this lovely ornate decorated cover. Some of them have plain covers. The later ones, the ones that were still being made in the 60s, they have a plastic cover. But if it's got that end like that, then it's a 15 class machine. And interestingly enough, the Sailrite is also a 15 class machine.
What makes it a 15 class machine?
The way the bobbin works,
oh.
and the way that works. So that fits a Sailrite machine. It's the same bobbin, it's the same bobbin case, wow. And the hook mechanism works in the same way.
And where did you find that machine?
This machine, I bought this machine in Scotland. It was advertised on Facebook for I think £10.
And was it not working when you bought it?
No, it was seized. It was solid. All the woodwork was in quite a bad state. So again, it's been stripped out of the wood. It's been revarnished. It's then been kind of polished and lacquered. One of the problems the old machines have is the oil that they were using in the past is so old. It's kind of dried up like varnish, and it basically glues everything together. So if you've had a machine that's been in the loft for 40 years or in a cupboard for 30 or 40 years, the chances are the oil has dried out on it. Oh. The oil that they were using to lubricate machines at the time, it was often whale oil. It wasn't mineral oil that we're using nowadays. Mm-hmm. So it has a different kind of consistency.
So you'll find a new home for this machine.
Yeah, this one is looking for a new home.
Ready to go.
So when I've got one for sale or when I've got one ready to go, I'll normally put a post on So Far North, mm-hmm. and then they'll be on like just Facebook Marketplace, mm-hmm. Or something like that.
And then you can ship them.
It depends where.
Yeah. Different
parts of the world have different postal services.
Sure. Yep.
UK is pretty good, so you can post it's not too expensive to post from the UK.
Yep.
But it depends where.
So with these machines, these older machines that don't run on electricity, would they work for sail repair?
They'll happily go through 4 layers of Dacron.
Really?
But they don't have a zigzag.
Oh, and you need a zigzag.
You need a zigzag. So anywhere you have a need for a stretch, you need a zigzag. Otherwise, what happens is the sail tries to stretch, mm-hmm. the thread comes tight, and then the thread breaks, and then the stitching comes out.
And none of these older machines have that.
None of the ones I've got here have a zigzag.
Aye.
So this is the Fabled 201. This is legendary as being the best straight stitch domestic machine that Singer made ever. And I did a video where I did a comparison between this machine and the Faff, the green one over there, and looked at the manufacturing quality of the different machines. And this machine is on a par, easily on a par, with the level of engineering that was made in German industrial sewing machines. And that's what makes this a special machine, if you like. The hook is rotary and it just continues to go around, which means it can reach much higher speeds. But it also still has the lovely lines. It's got the decorated end on it.
That's beautiful.
Then it has the serial number on the front, so you can find out exactly when and where it was made. So yeah, this one sounds.
Oh, it sounds different.
So it's a lot smoother because it's a rotary hook.
I never thought I'd be thinking, wow, that's such a beautiful sound, but it sounds really nice. I almost wish I had a recording of that to fall asleep to.
And you look underneath, and you know this has 2 gearboxes, and it's shaft driven, and that's what makes this a particularly special machine. So this is not a Singer.
Husqvarna.
Husqvarna, yeah.
Wow.
So they make chainsaws, weaponry, motorbikes, and the sewing machines they make are at the top end of the quality of machines.
Wow.
So this one I think is kind of 1920s.
1920. Wow. I'm imagining this one probably sounds a little bit different than the Singer machines.
You ready?
Yeah.
And again, it's a 15 class bobbin.
Huh.
So it's the same bobbin style as the Sailrite and as
Really?
that 15 machine. Yeah.
That design
Design is still in use today in the modern, cheaper plastic machines. They're often the 15 bobbin.
Do you think you'll find a home for this? Like somebody will end up using this as their home sewing machine?
Possibly not as the main one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do with a modern machine. They have fancy stitches, they have all kinds of cylinder arms, so you can get to difficult places like inside sleeves and making bags and things like that, which are not so easy on a flatbed vintage. But if you're doing just sewing some heavy fabric and you're just doing a straight stitch, then it's almost a waste of your expensive or your modern machine when you can do them so well on these. And you know, these are designed for straight stitch. A modern machine isn't designed for straight stitch, it's designed to do pattern stitches. So quite often they never do a great straight stitch because there's always a slight little bit of movement in the needle bar. Then they don't always kind of keep that straight line. Sometimes it's actually a zigzag, but it's a zigzag that's made as small as possible, so it's almost straight. So if you want to do, you know, really good quality straight stitches, or you're working in heavier fabrics, these will go through heavy fabrics without a problem. These will go through four layers of Dacron. I did a video where I went through 4 layers of felt, thick felt, 4 layers of denim, and 2 layers of leather. So it was like 12 layers of fabric altogether, and that was on these machines, these hand crank vintage machines. They're a great machine for doing that type of sewing. But if you want to do, you know, if you want to do something fancy, if you want to do fancy stitching, then you can use a modern machine. They're simple to repair, they're simple to maintain. There's no computers, there's no electronics.
Right.
So, you know, if everything goes wrong, you can get out the Singer and all the Husqvarna or whatever you've got, and you can finish a job after your other machine is broken. Or you can just use that machine as an alternative to keep your good machine in better condition. They definitely have a place for someone who's doing a lot of sewing, or for teaching young people. They're fantastic, you know, for teaching your grandkids. They're beautiful. This is not modern by any standards, but it's more modern than the previous ones we've just looked at.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like the color.
It's lovely, isn't it? So So this is an electric machine, and this has a whole range of fancy stitches. This one has a little surprise as well.
It's a very classy looking machine.
So this one has that free arm, so you can work on sleeves or you can work in more difficult places. You pull up these little things and then the needle will do different stitches.
The evolution of sewing machines.
This is to control needle position and operate a zigzag. And the nice thing about this is, if you have a look there, the mechanism is exposed, so you can kind of see it working. Wow. Which is one of the nice things about some of these machines.
What year is this machine?
I think this one is from the 50s, 1950s.
Wow.
It has a different design on it.
Yeah, it looks like a car from the 50s.
Yeah.
The curves and...
In fact, what I could do, I think the serial number's on the bottom of these ones. There's the serial number there.
And then you can look that up.
If I get my phone, I can look it up and tell you exactly.
ER883250.
Okay, so that tells me that it was made in Kilbowie in Scotland. It was one of 23,000 that were commissioned. Wow. It was commissioned on the 15th of August 1960.
The actual day.
Yeah. So that's not the day it was made, but that's the day it was commissioned. Wow. So they would have put the order in, and that would have gone to the factory, and then the factory would have produced them from there.
1960.
So 1960, yeah. So I wasn't far off. I said 50s.
The machine's older than me.
Yeah, it's older than both of us. Yeah.
I wonder, of those that were commissioned, how many of them are still around?
That's an interesting question. That's a 3-step zigzag.
Wow. 1960 Singer. Beautiful. I just love the controls. And
yeah, they're lovely.
Yeah, look at that.
We call them piano keys.
Piano keys. Wow. 1960 Singer. So anywhere you go in the world, there are sewing machines that need to be repaired.
I found it a really lovely way to travel on a sailboat. If I know where I'm going, I can get in touch with a Facebook group in the area where I'm going, let them know that I'm coming and that I can do sewing machine repairs. And then when we get there, we normally find there's at least one, and sometimes a lot more than one. And that's kind of been a really lovely way to kind of make communities and get to know places. Sometimes people pay me for the work, sometimes they will take us for a tour of their island or their local community. It's been a really nice way to travel and to meet people.
Where are some of the places that you sailed to and met people through sewing machines?
Mostly in Scotland and in Norway. So this one is a very similar machine, and this is one of the lovely things you get. Quite often you'll find little boxes like this, and they have like the old original screwdrivers and all of these little things. But another really lovely thing is the tools that the people who owned them put in the machine that weren't original. You find beautiful pairs of scissors and little screw, just lots of little things that they put in their sewing boxes, and they're still in. So this was a needle holder, so I now keep a knife in it. But little things like this, this came out of a sewing machine.
Wow!
And this was what they used to keep their crocheting needles and things in.
Sewing machines from the 50s. They come with all sorts of things.
Yeah, they come with all kinds of other little things in. This is probably my favourite domestic machine.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you like this one more than the others?
Because it has a slightly better capability because of a little design feature it has. It's what's called a free arm. So it has this arm that you can kind of get things around it. It's a bit more useful in that respect. The big thing with this one is it has a gearbox.
And a light.
And a light, yeah.
Oh, and a different design of bobbin.
Yes, this is a rotary rather than an oscillating. You can see that the hook just continues to turn round, so it's not oscillating. So that's it running. Zigzag. But the great thing with this one, it has a gearbox. You pull that out and it changes gear, which means now when you kind of press that down, so that is full speed, but it has a much more power.
So it could go through a heavier material.
So I've used this type of machine to do sail repairs before I got a sailrite.
Wow.
Because it will go through the fabric.
And it does a zigzag.
And it does a zigzag, yeah.
Wow.
And I've seen YouTube, there's some YouTube footage as well of people who've used Husqvarna type machines for making sails.
Really?
And actually and they've taken them on sailboats. So they are a very good option, or a cheaper option for that. You can't hand crank this one, so you need power. And if you fit an LED bulb rather than an incandescent bulb, it uses a lot less power for the light. So you can run it off your batteries through an inverter.
It's such a beautiful design.
It is. It's lovely, yeah.
The curves and the color and the finish. You don't make them like they used to.
They don't, no. These come with this little guide, which is just beautiful. And it tells you different settings. So you've got like this slide that comes out, and you can set that to different positions. And then this can be set at different positions.
Get the right combination.
So you get the right combination of numbers, and then you get these different stitches.
Wow.
So you can also use 2 needles in this one as well. You can put a double needle in.
Wow.
So that's your single needle.
I've learned so much about sewing machines today.
And then in the back, there's 2 spools. And this is what has all of the different stitches on. By selecting different cams, you can do different types of stitch. So it has the fancy stitches as well. That's the lovely old Husqvarna.
Do you think you'll find homes for all of these machines someday?
To be honest, if I just wanted to get rid of them, I could get rid of them relatively easily.
You could sell them right away if you wanted to.
What I'd rather do is kind of work up to a time when I have a lot of machines ready, and then like do a show or something. And
that's what you want to do. Yeah, that's what you want to do. You want to do a show.
Yeah, like a
machine show.
You by show I mean like a fair where you have like a craft show and you go and kind of display stuff for sale, so people can come and or a craft fair. So I'd rather do something like that.
Show them off.
So rather than just selling them individually on Facebook, I'd rather kind of make an event of it. That would be a nice thing to do, to just have them all on lovely tables and like a classic car show.
Yeah, like a classic car show.
The case was like part of the whole design. There's a box in here with parts in, but you can't get it out. So they've designed a cutaway so you can slide it out. So it has all of the tools and the different cams, and then the top part of it comes off, and then you've got all of the feet. And it's just such incredible design. It's you just don't get it. You just don't see it anymore unless you're at the real kind of high end, which nobody can afford.
Right.
And then it has that little table which you fit on, and then it turns it into a flatbed.
Right.
But this is also curved, so that the fabric runs up and over it more easily.
Oh, that's nice.
So there's just so much thought went into the design and the manufacture of these machines, which is why they're still around.
Yeah.
So this is one of the most popular vintage machines, especially in the States. So that's the box that it comes in.
Yeah.
Everything just fits in there.
That is so cute. I love how small it is.
The value of them is significantly different. They sell in America for up to $1,000.
These little guys.
Yeah, they run very nicely off a little motor.
And obviously no zigzag, just straight
No,
stitch.
it's straight stitch.
Can you vary the length of the stitch?
Yeah, you can vary the length, straight stitch in reverse. And all of the components are metal. It's a strong machine.
Yeah.
So it will easily work denim, but it'll also work your fine cotton shirts. So that's your featherweight. And then this one is something very different.
How old is that?
It's a 45K and it was commissioned on the 9th of November 1942. Wow. So this is kind of like for saddle work and kind of heavy duty leather and shoemaking. And that's all it does. It doesn't do reverse, it doesn't do zigzag.
But you can make a horse saddle with it.
You can, yeah, you could sew through your arm. So that's the kind of stitch.
Amazing.
And look at the thickness of that thread.
Right.
And there's the back side. That's what it's designed to do. It's so that sewing through that is just normal for it. It doesn't have a walking foot, and that kind of limits it as well a little bit. But it does have this what's called a cylinder arm, which means you can put a bag on there and you can sew around the bottom of a bag.
Made in the 1940s.
In Scotland.
Wow.
Made for girders.
Yeah!
So this is called a patcher. This type of machine was very common in the past for putting patches on boots. It has this really long, narrow arm.
Oh, for a boot.
You can put a whole boot on there and you can sew the boot. But the speciality of this machine is you can turn the direction of travel by rotating these levers. So you can sew in a circle without turning your work. So the boot goes on, the boot stays on, and then you turn the direction of the sewing machine.
Wow.
And that's the sort of kind of speciality with this one. And again, it would normally be driven by a motor, but you can also drive this one by hand.
Wow, look at that foot.
The other thing you can do, I can turn that. Yeah, so we've just sewed a square,
Right.
but I didn't turn the work at all.
Yeah.
So that's the speciality of this machine. So this is more designed for like the uppers of shoes, so the soft leather that the top of a shoe would be made of, whereas this one would go through the thicker leather that a sole would be made of.
And so this would definitely be classified as an industrial machine because it does
absolutely.
It does this one task.
So industrial is a strange phrase, and people have this idea that industrial means heavy duty, but there are lots of industrial machines that are incredibly delicate, and they're used for like making lace and putting delicate hems in the end of silk tablecloths.
Right.
They're still industrial machines. They will still work 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, but they're not designed to go through leather because they're for delicate work. So this idea of industrial sometimes is misunderstood. I prefer the term commercial. Commercial machines do one thing really well. Domestic machines are trying to do a lot of things. So it'll do fancy stitches, zigzag stitches, straight stitches. Whereas commercial machines, they're just doing one thing really well, and they'll do it 8 hours a day, all day, for the life of the machine, which might be 30 years.
So a sailwright machine isn't really a commercial or industrial machine. It's made for sail work, but it's also trying to do
so
everything.
it's a bit of a crossover. It can be used in a domestic setting, but there's no reason why I couldn't fit a sailwright to a table like that and use it in an industrial setting. And a lot of people use them for commercial work. There's a lot of leather workers use a type of sailwright. They have a more of a crossover. Whereas you're not going to see that sitting in somebody's living room.
What is this machine? A FAF?
This is a FAF 546. This can sew with 2 needles. It has 2 bobbins. It will go through much thicker fabrics. The latest thing I've been doing with these is these things.
That's great. That's a dog toy, right?
It's a dog toy, yeah.
Wow.
So this is made from old kind of discarded fire hose and some old rope. So we make a nice little face. And it's all recycled, so the eyes are made out of an old football. The nose is some of that rubber that we were using to sew earlier. This will sew through the fire hose, but it will also sew through the rope.
Wow.
We found a roll of old fire hose that had been thrown out. We managed to appropriate it for future work. And that sews through that pretty much no problem.
And are you selling these?
These are kind of prototypes at the minute.
Huh.
So what I'm hoping to do is have a sale sometime and sell these dog toys. This was from some scraps that were left over from doing some canopy work.
Oh, nice. Wow, you made that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's some of the like strata glass.
Right.
And this is some of the umbrella fabric.
Wow.
This bit was a bit that was left over from a Dodger that we took apart. So I thought that was a nice way of kind of using up some scraps in a usable way.
And what's this guy over here?
Yeah, that's the one. I wondered if you'd spot that one. Let's pull that one out. This is a really heavy duty machine. This is for sewing uppers onto soles of shoes. So the needle goes in here and it works like that.
Wow.
It would be mounted on an edge, and then you could basically work your way around.
Wow. If you had one of those, you could sew a new sole onto old shoes. Thank you for showing me all of these machines. I had no idea that these types of machines existed. So if people want to find out more about sewing machines, they can check out your Facebook page.
Yeah.
So Far North.
So Far North with an SEW.
Yeah.
And if they have a machine that they're struggling with, they can contact me through the page.
Right.
And if I can help, I'll help.
Fantastic.
Or if they want to buy a machine, I can sell them one.
Or maybe bring a machine to you for repair.
Yep.
Yeah. You're the hero of the sewing machines.
I don't think I'm the hero. I think I'm a part of an army of sewing machine heroes working quietly in little corners of the world.
So you said you live on a sailboat. What kind of boat is it?
It's called a Spindrift 43. It's a 43-foot cutter, canoe stern. 1984 it was built, and built for the American market. So it's quite a classic.
How long have you had it?
6 years. We've lived on it for 6 years.
And where have you sailed with it?
So we got it in Holland. So we sailed back from Holland up through the Caledonian Canal to the west coast where our house is. We then sailed to Shetland, and then from Shetland we've been to multiple times to Faroes, been once to Iceland, been multiple times over to Norway. The furthest we've made it to is Svalbard.
Wow.
Which we went to last year.
Fantastic. Can we look at your boat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for showing us your boat.
Yeah, no problem.
Wow.
You always get cornered into this, Drake.
Yeah, yeah.